So the LIND program, the first place I like to start is by telling you what the acronym LIND stands for. LEND stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And the LIND program provides long-term graduate level interdisciplinary training. And the purpose of the program is to improve the health of infants, children, and adolescents with disabilities and their families by working with trainees from diverse disciplines. And the idea is really to help those leaders develop their leadership skills in their respective fields, and by developing their experiences working with children and families. So there are currently 52 LIND programs in 44 states. So the LIND program, our LIND program in Alaska, is part of a national network of LIND programs. LIND programs are funded under the 2014 Autism CARES Act, and they're administered by the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, Maternal and Child Health Bureau, sorry. Typically, LIND programs are associated with a university-based medical school or a university center for excellence in developmental disabilities. Here in Alaska, our LIND program is associated with UAA's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, which is the Center for Human Development. So our LIND program in Alaska is a statewide LIND program. So we use distance technology to integrate LIND fellows from across the state of Alaska. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the core program components of the LIND program, what LIND fellows actually do with their time. So the first thing to know is that the LIND program runs on UAA's academic calendar. So we are accepting applications right now for the LIND program that will start in September 2017 and will end in May 2018. The minimum commitment for the LIND program is a total of 300 hours that are covered through that September to May period. So that breaks down to about 6 to 10 hours a week from September to May. So within those 300 hours, LIND fellows engage in didactic seminars, which I'll talk about. They also engage in clinical experiences, and they also have field experience and a host family experience. And finally, a leadership project. So I'm going to talk about each of those separately. First are the LIND seminars. We have for the past several years, and I anticipate this will be the same next year, have our LIND seminars on Friday afternoons from 1 to 4 p.m. and they are distance delivered. So LIND fellows can access them from wherever they are in Alaska. And these LIND seminars include interdisciplinary discussion, expert speakers, and interactive learning, and really provide great information on access to the newest resources and research in developmental disabilities. So that's about a third of the hours of LIND. The next third are clinical and field experiences. The LIND program does inform LIND fellows of clinical and field experiences as they come up, but often LIND fellows will identify those experiences themselves, either through their own contacts in their community, or through other opportunities that come up in Alaska. So those clinical and field experiences are also about a third of the 300 hours. And then the final third, the final 100 hours is divided between the host family experience and the leadership project. The host family experience is designed so that Lynn Fellows have the opportunity to learn from a family who has a child with a disability about what day-to-day life looks and feels like. So the Lynn Fellow may join the family for events, IEP meetings, clinical appointments, family events, or just daily life events to understand the joys and challenges that the family experiences on a day-to-day basis. So each fellow is matched with a family in their own community. And then also Lynn Fellows engage in a leadership project. The LIND program allows fellows to do this sort of in one of two ways. The fellows can choose from a project list of identified partner projects, LIND partner projects, or LIND fellows who are in a degree program may do a project that meets both the LIND requirements and their degree requirements. So anytime a LIND fellow has a project of interest, they can propose to do that project. So we really work with LIND fellows to develop a LIND leadership project that is a good fit for their learning goals for being in the LIND program. So throughout this 300 hours of time spent in the LIND program, all LIND fellows have the support and guidance of a LIND faculty member. And so each LIND fellow works with their faculty member. Typically, the LIND fellow is matched with a faculty member who is in their discipline to support them in the LIND program, to help them reflect on their learning in the LIND program and how it fits in with their professional development and personal development, and really to act as a guide for the LIND program. So the last thing that I wanted to share before I turn it over to Karen for any additional comments is really the time commitment. And I think this is probably where we get the most feedback from fellows who are both currently in the program and fellows once they complete the program, which is that participating in the LIND program takes more time than they anticipated it would. So you can expect to spend about 6 to 10 hours a week or 150 hours a semester. And within that time commitment, there are specific deadlines and things that have to be accomplished. So it really requires participants to plan ahead and to really be committed to putting in the time as things come up. Okay, so Karen, is there anything else you'd like to
Well, the only
add?
the only thing I would add is that if you do a LEND program, you'll work with your faculty mentor to come up with a focus, a little plan of what you're trying to accomplish in those 2 semesters, so that they can help you arrange your clinical and field experiences to match the goals that you had for yourself for the program. Same goes with the leadership project, so that it's in line with the whole reasoning for you to have engaged. Yet it always, everybody says it takes way more time. Of course, we all can relate to, oh, that'll only take me 10 minutes, and 3 hours later. So it's sort of like that. And then the only other thing I will add is there is a stipend that we pay LEND fellows. Half of it happens at the end of December, and the other half happens at the end of the spring term. The amount of that money really depends on our funding, but there is a stipend for the time that some people have to take off from work in order to attend the seminars.
Can you also talk about the workforce credential?
Yes.
I didn't mention that.
And then while most of our program is distance delivered, I'm hoping that next semester we can use, or next year, we're actually going to use Zoom because it's a little easier in some cases. But there are 3 times that everybody comes together that we pay for travel into Anchorage so that everybody can meet each other face to face. One is an orientation, so at the very beginning we start out face to face. Then we have, oh, already, wow. And then the second one, oh, so the first one will be September 7th and 8th in 2017. Then we'll come together November 16th and 17th for the fall semester. And then in April 19 and 20, we'll come together for the final face-to-face. So I think that that's really helpful that people get to see each other. In addition to the stipend, when the whole program is completed, you actually have a transcript from the University of Alaska Anchorage that gives you what they call workforce credentials, so that if anybody said, you say, well, I went to this LEN program, you can prove that you actually completed a workforce credential, which is a non-academic credential. And that's all I think I have to say.
Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Anna Spilker to talk with you about her LEND experience. Anna?
Well, I was just incredibly privileged to be able to participate in LEND 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Trying to count back. And I just had a marvelous experience, and I feel that I think it's very important to highlight the time commitment because it was a big time commitment as far as targeting the different areas and making sure that all those hours in those areas were completed. But I will say that it was doable. I'll give the disclaimer, I am a working professional. I worked about 30 hours per week as a speech therapist, and I have 2 young little ones, or at the time 1 little one. And so juggling the professional and family components along with the LEND hours could be occasionally tricky, but again, I felt like I came up with a great plan with my faculty mentor. I had a wonderful working relationship with her. We would meet very regularly to kind of review the goals, and I'm forgetting the name of the plan, but the goal.
The individualized leadership plan.
Yes, the ILP, that's right.
Oh,
I was remembering the acronym, and I was like, is that right? Because I'm the infant learning plan? No, forgive me. So we would meet very regularly to review goals and make sure I was kind of on the timeline that I needed to be. And I will say too, and I don't want to overstep, but there was some flexibility with that. Like I do recall there were a couple things that came up in my professional and personal life that I was like, okay, we need to readjust the timeline of these goals, or I'm unable to make this, but I can do this instead. And, you know, I will just say it was just a really enriching experience. I don't know if you want me to talk about specific components that I felt were.
Sure.
Okay, so I will say the face-to-face, or forget not the face-to-face, but even the seminars, the weekly seminars, were just so helpful to my professional practice in expanding my understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the various disciplines. I'm a speech pathologist, and at the time that I was doing the LEND program, I was in a standalone private practice, and so I really missed that interdisciplinary component, and I felt that participating in LEND really helped me understand kind of some of the roles that some of the other disciplines, OT, PT, counseling, mental health, you know, special education, that they all played, and then just kind of a better understanding, broader picture-wise of some of the resources that were available to families with disabilities. So looking specifically at eligibility for funding, DD eligibility, looking at school district eligibility, kind of seeing what things were out there for families that I might not have known about, that I could end up taking back to my practice and saying, you know, I've been thinking about this, or I learned about this, and let me plug you into this parent support group through Stone Soup Group, or let me give you information about this upcoming screening that's coming up I think you would really benefit from, or let's go to that website together and kind of start looking at eligibility for your child, because I do think you're looking at a long-term, lifelong disability here, which I do think the number one thing I wanted to comment on today, as I was talking, I met with a friend who's actually a current Lind Fellow the other night, and we were talking about how just that understanding of family-centered care and family-centered services is really at the heart of Lind. And you know, when you're in graduate school or even in your early years in your profession, you know, you're learning so much about your discipline and the research and what's so important to do to provide the best service in your narrow area. But sometimes I think we miss that broader picture of, you know, really treating the whole child and the whole family, and recognizing that, you know, advancement in that one skill set, speech or language, isn't going to happen unless the whole community can come together and really look at resources that are available and getting parent buy-in and education. And I feel like Lind especially emphasized that and really changed my perspective as a parent, or as a parent as well, but as a therapist, about what really matters and how to really involve parents in therapy and in the process with their child and talking with them. You know, now when I have a new child come in to see me, you know, I spend a good chunk of that first evaluation time just interfacing with the parent about what are your needs and you know, concerns here, what resources are you already plugged into, and what can I help you to come up with for the future. And those things are so important to a child's care. So I had wonderful experiences doing the face-to-face and the forgive me, and the seminars, as far as just learning about the resources and learning about the newest research. I will say, just clinically as a speech therapist, working with Dr. Davis and really learning a lot about up and coming research about autism, about syndromes, kind of highlighting those red flags in the diagnosis process. I had that in graduate school and I saw it in the profession, but to kind of have that recap and that in-depth information presented, I will say that it gave me the confidence as a clinician to start really doing some earlier referrals than what I was doing for families when I felt like, hey, we really need to get you in to see a developmental pediatrician, and to start doing those chats and doing those things, that those clinical tools that, you know, we kind of knew about, but after having that practice doing it at Lind, I felt like I could really, from the get-go, start doing those things a lot earlier than that kind of wait and see method that sometimes we do as clinicians, because we, you know, want to be safe and we want to make sure it's, you know, we want to feel confident in our decisions. But I do think being in the Lind program made me recognize that early and earlier, you can really see those signs, and the sooner you can get kids in to be seen and to be diagnosed, the better the outcomes are. I had a wonderful experience with the leadership project. I ended up doing a leadership training video for the Anchorage Police Department. We scripted it. I did my lit review and researched strategies that were imperative for law enforcement in using in their interactions with individuals with hidden disabilities, high functioning autism, FASD, post-traumatic stress, kind of that population that you might not see them in their disability as a parent, but these are the kind of negative interactions that we're hearing about in the media when you look at police officers and first responders and individuals with disabilities. So it was really cool to have that research project, the lit review, where I spent a lot of time just reviewing resources and then writing that up, and then taking that to scripted training, working with several actors that were APD officers and an individual with a disability that was, I believe, in the Tapestry program through UAA. And so it was really cool to be able to kind of have that, you know, that experience to work with various people in the community, not just the Lind program. We worked with the Health and Disability Project as well. So I got to meet some other people that were in some other professional alliances here in town. And then it was really fun. We actually filmed the video in my home, and it was really cute because the APD officers that were involved made sure that they let the neighborhood watch person know that they were training this video, because we had 2 officer cars with lights on, and I'm sure all my nosy neighbors are like, what is going on over at the Silker White residence? So yeah, it was pretty cool because we got to do that there, and then we actually did the training, presented the video, and then did follow-up questions and a rating scale for each of the shift changes for the officers. So I believe like every officer was able to participate in the training, and we got some good feedback that it was some very helpful strategies that were, I think sometimes as professionals, we kind of take for granted that there are things that we know from our practice or from our schooling that are pretty concrete and seem maybe simple or common sense to us, but there might not really be the case. And so it was nice to kind of disseminate that information in a really practical way. So that experience was wonderful, and it was a really great way to see how it all tied together with all of the, between the clinical components and the research components, and just, that piece along with the service and community involvement. It was really neat. And the other thing I really wanted to talk about was I had a wonderful experience working with the family that was chosen, that I was paired with for the family component, because as a therapist and as a parent, I work with kids a lot. I've been to a lot of the IEP meetings. I've been to a lot of the therapies, but being in a different role where you are just there to really kind of put a set of different goggles or filters or glasses on and see it from a different perspective, sitting in an IEP meeting that I wasn't leading or participating in, just observing from the perspective of a friend of the family was quite an eye-opening experience for me, and really made me think about just the way that sometimes those meetings take place without always necessarily gathering the input from the family, and actually there were some really positive things that happened too, so I don't want to be negative about that per se, but it was just kind of eye-opening to look at it from a different perspective. And then I really got to see some cool things, just being part of some neighborhood activities that the family was part of, and kind of seeing what they go through on a day-to-day life with a young son with multiple disabilities. And then I got to go out to Challenge Alaska and Girdwood and get to experience all the cool things that they do out there that I've heard about, but I had never personally experienced. And so that was really cool too. And yeah, I would just say overall, I met some wonderful colleagues in various disciplines that I was fellows with that I still stay in touch with. I developed a really wonderful relationship with my faculty mentor, and I still stay in touch with her. I've really praised and championed the LEND program, and I think I've recruited a couple people to join. I do the newsletter for my state association, and every edition I put a whole page ad in there about, come on, come do the LEND program. You will definitely benefit as a therapist, as a person in general, and I just wouldn't trade the experience for the world. It was a lot of work, yes, but I benefited from it, and I felt that there was a definite understanding and sensitivity that everybody in the program, they come in, with kind of different lenses and perspectives, and it's really important that everyone meets their own personal goals on their ILP, but also that as a whole we kind of come together and learn some of the same things. And I really did feel like there was a lot of flexibility and understanding that most of us were full-time and or close working professionals, as well as a lot of us were parents or, just at different places in our family life. And there was understanding and appreciation of that. So it's a great program.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Anna,
Yeah, absolutely.
for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it. So now you've heard from all of us, and we would love to answer the questions that you have about the LEND program.
At what point do we get our assigned host family?
Usually that happens at the very beginning of the program. So usually in September, after the face-to-face, our LEND core faculty for family works with pairing up the Lind Fellows with a family.
Okay.
And we have a question from Amanda. She says, this sounds like a great program. You said these are workforce credentials. Is that similar to an occupational endorsement? And what is the tuition? And I'll let Karen handle that one.
The simple answer is yes, they're similar to an occupational endorsement. The difference is an occupational endorsement comes with academic credit. So most occupational endorsements are, anywhere between 15 and 20 credits. A workforce credential does not carry academic credit. There is no tuition. We will pay the fellow a stipend. So I always have to laugh a little bit and say, there's no tuition, we pay you.
And I think that Karen covered this, but any travel required by the Lind Fellow, either to come in to Anchorage for the face-to-face, or anytime a Lind Fellow travels for, say, a neurodevelopmental outreach clinic in a rural community, the Lind program covers the costs of all approved travel for the Lind program. So there's no cost for distance Lind Fellows outside of Anchorage who travel to Anchorage for the face-to-face. So the big cost of the Lind program is probably time and energy.
Can I speak to the travel thing
Yes.
really quickly? So I meant to talk about this when I was talking. I was really lucky to be able to participate in one of the neurodevelopmental screening clinics in Fairbanks, I believe. And it was such an awesome experience. And I will say that just from the perspective of the travel, it was so seamless. Like Lind booked my flight for me. They made sure, I think I paid for the hotel, but it was reimbursed like really quickly. And there was a stipend for meals and everything. Like it was just a really seamless activity. I felt like I didn't have to go out of, in the end, I didn't go out of pocket at all for that. And it was just a really, really wonderful experience to be able to travel and to experience that clinic and to have that opportunity.
Okay, so one more question from Amanda. When I was looking at application requirements, it's graduate level, but parents of children with developmental disabilities can apply despite education level. Yes, that is correct. Do you want to say anything more about that, Karen?
That is correct. So the only issue is that whatever your goals are, can they be met through the Lind program?
So thank you so much for joining us today. It was